Welcome to the Afghanistan Project podcast. I'm your host, Beth Bailey, and today I'm excited to welcome Dr. Nooralhaq Nasimi, founder and director of the Afghanistan and Central Asian Association, the ACAA. Dr. Nasimi has a law degree from Southbank University, a PhD in political science that he achieved in Ukraine, and an honorary doctorate in law and social sciences from Royal Holloway University. Dr. Nasimi has also received a plethora of awards for his work, including the Queen's Award for Voluntary Service in 2018, the British Citizen Award in 2020, and he was appointed a member of the Order of the British Empire by King Charles III at Windsor Castle in December 2023. Dr. Nasimi, it's so great to have you here, and I'd love to start out by asking you about your childhood in Afghanistan under the Russians and when and how you became an activist in your homeland.
So, first of all, thank you for the invitation, Beth. Until today, no one knows that the fighting against the Russian took place in the north of Afghanistan by Tajik. The main group resisted and sacrificed and fought against the Russian. The main group were only Tajik. I completely understand because of the isolation for the past 300 years since the creation of Afghanistan as a buffer state. The Pashtuns tried their best to keep us the darkest people in the world, and that's why the people who represented Tajik, unfortunately, they were far away from diplomacy, far away from lobbying, far away from working in international NGO. And that's why Ashraf Ghani Ahmad Zaid, the former member of staff in the World Bank, Mr. Zalmay Khalilzad, the former translator in White House, who are coming from the Pashtun tribe, they managed to take advantage after the Tajik lost millions of lives in the north of Afghanistan. The Russian never been involved in the south of Afghanistan, where normally the Pashtuns are living. So that's why in my WhatsApp group recently I put Nelson Mandela's picture in my profile. The reason, because I can see there is no differences between South Africa and Afghanistan. But the good things about South Africa, there was visible discrimination, visible maybe according to the black community, inequality and discrimination from white people against black people in South Africa. But the way Pashtun treated us, the way Pashtun ran the country, this is completely unreported and we need the world to understand this. How can you impose the Taliban, who are mainly Pashtuns, on the people who sacrifice fighting against the Russians? This is very unethical. It's very, very strange, and it's very painful. What we have done wrong to live under the Taliban after fighting against the Russian, the USSR. Our fighting against the USSR resulted in the collapse of the USSR, in the collapse of the Warsaw Pact. Now we have only one alliance, military alliance, which is NATO. There is no more Warsaw Pact to resist against the NATO. And then imposing the Taliban on us. When I'm talking about imposing, this could be a very controversial and very dangerous topic, because maybe the entire world, they don't understand the complexity of the situation in Afghanistan, because Mr. Khalilzad and the former president, who are Pashtun, introduced the Taliban, of course, with the coordination of CIA, as a fighting groups against the NATO. And the reality wasn't the fact. The Taliban only fought against my people. Every time when they made a suicide explosion, I haven't seen NATO troops being killed. They killed millions of children in Afghanistan and millions of women. The main target group for the Taliban on a daily basis were the innocent people, which allow Mr. Zalmay Khalilzad, the former U.S. ambassador, U.S. envoy on Afghanistan, and the former president, to introduce the Taliban as a freedom fighters, which make me again very sad. How can you introduce terrorists as a freedom fighter? The freedom fighters, they were the former Mujahideen, which later by Mr. Khalilzad and Ashraf Ghani named as a warlords. Of course, this is understandable because our representative in the Afghanistan government, they didn't have someone like Dr. Nasimi 50 years ago. They didn't have someone like Dr. Nasimi 40 years ago. And I was blaming my mother why she was born me in the wrong time, in the wrong century. Otherwise, Mr. Khalilzad and Ashraf Ghani could never change the game for the benefit of only Pashtun tribe. If I was here 40 years ago, I could maybe use the Mujahideen for the big and great game to make sure that the Tajik will be in charge of Afghanistan, who are the indigenous people, and the main language of the country is Farsi, and they are the majority of the people. But in Google, you can't find this information, who are the indigenous and who are non-indigenous, who are actually migrants and who are actually the people lived in that land for thousands of years. At the same time, I can blame the Iranian. Why? Because Iran is our roots. The roots become dry. The Iranian become isolated. If they themselves become isolated, how the international community can trust Tajik in Afghanistan because of their common history, common culture, and common background? And of course, when the Western countries see Iranian as a threat, then of course they can see the Tajik also as a threat. And that's why I am fighting for the future of my country from here. I am against discrimination, while the Pashtuns accusing me of discrimination. But they don't understand. You can accuse of discrimination a stupid Tajik, but not Dr. Nasimi. You are killing for 300 years millions of my people. You're nice people. Killing, you're genocide, you're committed genocide against non-Pashtun. You're nice, perfect people. When Dr. Nasimi opened his mouth, oh, Nasimi is racist. I understand this is your tactic, and you use this tactic for the past 300 years. Anyone who opened their mouth, you call them communist, you call them racist, you call them non-Muslim, to make sure that the reputation of the person go down. My activism, that's why I started during the Soviet invasion.
Very interesting. I would like to ask one question before you start telling that story, because I'm really keen on hearing that, your activism start. But you bring up such an interesting point that from an outside perspective, as an American, where we're pretty much all, assimilated into this big melting pot, Afghanistan still has those very strong ties. And I have had, Amnesty International reporters come on here talking about how the Taliban are continuing to target Tajiks now, and that they've found, evidence of targeting specifically of Tajiks, whether they think that they're associated with the NRF or not. But what about, there are other groups too. It's not just Tajiks and Pashtuns. And so I wonder, do you think that the U.S. concept of that representative democracy, where Kuchis got a certain number of seats in the government and Pashtuns got a certain number and Tajiks did, that sounded like such a good idea to an American, right? Why do you think that didn't continue to work when the Taliban came to power, and that now we have this Pashtun-led government that really was never voted upon at all?
Ashraf Ghani Ahmadzai was only 16, 17 years old, the same Mr. Zalmai Khalilzad, who was sent by the king of Afghanistan to the Western countries. They were very young. They knew how they can manage Tajik, Hazara, Uzbek. And that's why we lost the game, because, for example, you talk about NRF. NRF doesn't exist. This is something that helped the Pashtun domination forever. If the fighting against the Russian didn't help the Tajik, where the entire world supported us to fight against the Russian. Now everyone knows who supported the Taliban. I don't want to talk about this. How can this people from NRF, just because of, because of tribalism, to dominate, running or managing or leading Tajik forever, and introducing something NRF, where even the place where normally the NRF come from, also controlled by the Taliban. So what's happened, the formula was very, very strange, very dangerous formula. Mr. Ashraf Ghani Ahmadzai, which I believe he was the key main game player from the beginning in 2001, he appointed as the representative of the Tajik everyone from only the place that belong the NRF, which I don't want to even mention the name of the place. Yes. Ministers from that district, generals from that district, 4 vice presidents from the same district. But the Tajik is not limited only in one district. This was the formula that Ashraf Ghani learned from working in the World Bank, working in the intelligence, international intelligence, to punish the Tajik. For example, I'm giving you just very simple example. If the half of the politician in the US administration, for example, from indigenous community, this is just an example. No. Half of the politicians in the US administration, like Pashtun, for example, and for them to punish the indigenous people, they can maybe bring people only from San Francisco to join the government. So you have so many states in the North of America. The entire North of America, they don't have any representation in the US administration, and the central government only appointed and give power to just one state, which is now we are fighting through TikTok, through the social media between ourselves. Unless we will have a chance from the international community to bring some new changes in the country. So the Tajik for me now is finished. Their history is, how do you say, over? But it's gone, everything. Unless if there is some outside interference or some outside maybe attention to bring some changes in our society, now they are involved using very bad languages between themselves through the social media. So when you talk about the coalition government, transition government in 2001, it wasn't a very democratic transition or democratic coalition. It was created by Mr. Zalmay Khalilzad and Mr. Ashraf Ghani Ahmadzai and Karzai and the Pashtun technocrats. Then they were sitting between themselves thinking, so now how we can promote division between Tajik, promote division between Hazara, promote division between Uzbek. And then they bring some few uneducated people from this tribe who couldn't speak a word of English. The entire relationship between the embassies, the NATO and the embassies and the international organization was only happening between Ashraf Ghani and the Pashtun groups with the embassies and this other ethnic group. They keep them busy with making policies for themselves, big houses with the 16 bedrooms, 4 kitchens, 6 toilets, big garden, not one policy. So the representative from the Tajik, Hazara, Uzbek become busy, or maybe they made them busy, the Afghan government, Afghanistan government, to just, yes, keep them busy with their personal life. 20, 40, 50 black cars with the black windows, yeah, big breakfast, big dinner, lunch, traveling to Dubai for shopping, traveling to Istanbul for business. And of course, Ashraf Ghani and the Pashtun technocrats, we won the game because they spoke English very good. They speak English very good. Their capacity, skill is very high, which I don't, for example, blame them if the leadership of the Pashtuns always think for the interests of the Pashtun tribe. How can we blame them? The only thing that we can blame them because they kept our people very dark since the creation of Afghanistan. Even during the king of Zahir Shah, the level of literacy in Afghanistan was only 2%. And they made the school exam I remember because I was attending a school during the king and later during the president Muhammad Dawood Khan. When you finish year 8, they introduced a serious exam where you couldn't go to secondary school. After the year 8, you have to start maybe working as a labor or selling fruits on the streets. So this is the main reason that we lost the game. We lost the game, which is very, very, very painful for me, because fighting against the Russian wasn't easy. I remember more than 250,000 Russian troops. They entered in Afghanistan, through the north of Afghanistan, and they kicked out through the north of Afghanistan. And they faced serious fighting, serious resistance from the people in the north of Afghanistan, in particular from the people of Parwan, which is very close to Kabul. And also, if you understand the geography of Afghanistan, Bagram, the biggest military bases, was also part of Parwan. But when you see the picture of Parwan, it is completely, yes, serious crimes committed by the former president comparing to Kandahar. So the Kandahar city became like Dubai. Again, how can you live in a country like Afghanistan if the US administration spent billions in one part of the US and nothing in the other part of the US? So Parwan, the picture of the Parwan, I can send you the link, seeing that we have never experienced any NATO presence in the north of Afghanistan, while the main military bases of the NATO was Bagram. But then you see the infrastructure in the south of Afghanistan. This huge investment was made by the president of Afghanistan. And that's why there are a lot of suspicions that the president of Afghanistan, he wasn't fled the country. He kicked out their enemies like Tajik, Uzbek, Hazara, and he himself took the plane and went to Kandahar and made Kandahar the second capital of Afghanistan. But this is more confidential capital. Kabul is open to everyone. Kandahar is a closed city. Journalists, embassies, and the citizens of Afghanistan, they are not allowed to travel to Kandahar. So this is part of the great game. This is part of the big game, part of the intelligence game. That's why at the beginning I was warning you that the information I provide you, you will never find anyone in Afghanistan to give you the same information like I am giving you. I was sharing you so far.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, the main purpose for the interview to talk about my organization. But my age, spending 26 years of my life in the organization, now there is no appetite, no interest to talk about the organization. I started among the largest black community in Zone 2 in the southeast of London. Opening a small office, and then I managed to survive and continue for 18 years in the southeast in a wrong location and managed to sustain the organization. Then West London, where you have over 300,000 refugees from Afghanistan, they had small informal groups, mainly run by the Pashtuns in West London. But since I moved to West London only 8 years ago, we managed to increase our income. We managed to launch the largest community center in West London. That's why we become the focal point, the main contact point during the crisis in 2021. That's why the national and international media choose our center for live broadcast. While I was sleeping in the office and watching the queue through the window, from 5 a.m. we had thousands of people queuing to the center to get some help and advice. We opened at 9 a.m., but people started queuing from 5 a.m. No funding, no resources, relying on volunteers. We managed to help thousands of people regardless of their background. The majority of the people who come to the center, I was looking and talking with them, they were Pashtun, and then they are accusing me of racism. Of course, they should, because they consider me as the biggest threat for the history of the Pashtun domination. That eventually the Tajik now open a center in London, and London is the capital of the world. London is the king of the world. So the Tajik, who always been disadvantaged inside Afghanistan and is running a big organization, moving from southeast to West London, launching the largest community center, now opening number of other offices in Birmingham, in Liverpool, in Kent, in Harrow, in Hillingdon, and having the largest summer festival to celebrate Refugee Week. So the last summer festival was on Sunday. You could see maybe more than 10,000 people attended. And no one until today managed to organize the same festival like I organized this. And I saw the majority of people attended, they were Pashtun. They enjoy dancing in Pashtun culture. The singer I invited, they were Pashtun. So for them to accuse me of racism, this is very nonsense. Where maybe, hopefully you, maybe the Western democracy, bring some changes in Afghanistan where we can eventually introduce or maybe establish equality, social justice, and some kind of democracy according to our culture. I don't mean the way that the democracy that we are having in UK, which is very nonsense. UK has a long history of democracy. The British people started cultural revolution through launching the Oxford and Cambridge universities 1,000 years ago, while we are now living under the Taliban in the 21st century. And my expectation for the future of Afghanistan is not to bring changes, to make big changes overnight in Afghanistan, but at least we need some serious campaign, serious lobbying and advocacy among the international community to stop the Taliban dominating power in all provinces. If the international community want to work with us, we are happy to work in partnership with them to make sure that China and Russia will not become again the biggest threat to the Western democracy. We know that the Chinese, they don't have a good track record in democracy and human rights, as well as the Russian people. Putin dominated power in Russia for more than 25 years. And the people of Russia, they are asking why there is no one in Russia to replace Putin, because he's a dictator, dictator. So we, as the diaspora community, ask people like yourself to use your social media platform on starting a big campaign, which of course you didn't expect the same conversation with me. Your aim was just to talk maybe about the challenges refugees face. Of course, the challenges will never end if we do not have a proper system back home in Afghanistan. These challenges will continue forever. We talk about integration. I was at the Downing Street yesterday. There was a round table, and the topic was integration, participation, and what are the challenges that stop people participate in a community life. And I was listening the Indian and Pakistani. This was my first time. Of course, I have attended a lot of meetings in the Foreign Office and the House of Parliament, but the Downing Street, it was my first meeting, which when I was listening the Indian and Pakistani talking about the Afghan refugees, made me very sad. Eventually, there was an English woman, a professor, sitting next to me. I took her pen and wrote something. I said, can you tell the chair to stop these people dominate the meeting? Allow others, give other people a chance to talk. And they are not from Afghanistan. I'm talking about Afghan refugees. I'm from Afghanistan, and I have the opportunity for the first time to come to the Downing Street. Now, give me the chance to talk. The problems face my people. First of all, so I didn't mention in the Downing Street, I want to tell you, the evacuation wasn't transparent. The Taliban opened the gate for their own tribe to get out to Afghanistan. The Taliban opened the gate for their own family members. The Taliban called their families to Peshawar, in Peshawar and Pakistan, come to Afghanistan, and Peshawar is very close to Kabul, it's only 2 hours. Come to the Kabul airport, we will send you to London, we will send you to EU, we will send you to US. I haven't seen many people from different background, or Tajik to come to the West and claim. There are, of course, few people who really maybe put their life in risk and work with the US and UK military, with the British Army, maybe US Army. They are now also in the West, but the majority from one ethnic group. Number two, again, I was telling you that my conversation will be very controversial. Some of the people who come to the UK, I don't know about US, now they are back home in Afghanistan because they don't have a problem with the Taliban. They come here to the UK because they use the opportunity to flee the country once they got the visa, once you get, especially visa. Now they are traveling and staying inside Afghanistan, working with the Taliban because they have big houses, as I said, 10, 15 bedrooms, big kitchen. I don't think that they can live in small houses that we have in London, and the maximum rooms is 3 bedrooms. Yeah, the integration is the biggest challenge, and I don't think this can be solved easily because the South Asian people, they are integrated with the English culture for the past 400 years. Even the South Asian people, the school, the education back in South Asia is the same like here in London. They don't have any issues with the English language, where in our case, the majority of people, they can't speak English language, they don't have a formal job, they don't have a CV, they don't have an email address after 20 years living in the UK. And I think I have to tell you one good things about the new arrived community. So the new arrived people, because of the opportunities created in Afghanistan in 2001 by NATO, the new arrived people, they come to the West with a good skill, good English language, skill, understanding about the Western culture because they were working with the international NGO in Afghanistan. But when you compare the situation of the people who come to the UK or maybe to the Western country 20, 25, 30 years ago, they are unfortunately slightly different. Not slightly, they are different. Of course, it depends on the different circumstances. They fled Afghanistan because of the Taliban 25 years ago. These people, they fled Afghanistan because of the return of the Taliban again, but they lived in Afghanistan under the most democratic nations, which are UK, US, and the European communities. And the Western democracy allowed the people of Afghanistan to flourish, to build their capacity, to expand their knowledge and confidence, understanding about the Western culture. So now I don't know if I can, yes, the challenges, as I said, participation, which I'm sure that in the US you should have the same problem. The participation of the people, that's why we don't have anyone in the US Congress. We don't have anyone in the US Senate. The same thing in the UK. We don't have a councillor, we don't have an MP. The representations of the Afghanistan diaspora in the EU, UK, as well as in the US is very, very, very. It doesn't actually. It doesn't. There's no representation. Yeah, yeah. Do you have any questions? Or maybe
Well, this is definitely an interesting take that like you said, I was not expecting that this would be our conversation. I guess, so let's just go back. I want to say that I've been saying since roughly the start of this podcast that if Afghans in the diaspora don't get together and figure out a path forward for all Afghans, that there's no way the Taliban will ever be defeated. And, right now I've always thought of it as that women don't get to vote on what their future is, and that if women could vote on who would be in power, they would not choose, by and large, they would not choose the Taliban. I think there are some women who believe that that is their role. The role that the Taliban is putting them in is their role in society, and they don't have a problem with it. But not the majority of Afghan women that I speak with. And I've always thought about it from that point of view. And I never thought about it from the point of view that for Tajiks and Uzbeks and Hazara and for Christian minority members and things like that inside of Afghanistan, that they also don't get the chance to choose who is in control of their country. And, the unique aspect of being a Tajik inside of Afghanistan. So I appreciate you bringing that to my attention. And I really think if I could wave a magic wand and do anything for Afghans in the diaspora, it would be to help them come together and coalesce and find a way to make sure that there is a future for Afghanistan that involves all ethnic groups and religious minorities and anyone who wants to have a free life inside of that beautiful country with such a rich history. So I appreciate you sharing your view of that. It's valuable to hear. But I would love to hear, if we could close out with just some information about your family's participation in this, and maybe briefly the story of how you came to the UK and why you had to flee your country in 1999 and what that process has been like for you, leaving your homeland that I assume you love just as deeply as every other Afghan that I speak with, I'd love to hear a bit about that.
yes, it's quite impressive. I feel very proud to remember my background and then eventually meeting King Charles at the Windsor Castle to receive my MBE. Of course, going back to the question you asked me at the beginning, I grown up in a very poor family, in one room. It wasn't one bedroom, one room, very dark, 6 people. The next room was a storage of the branches of the trees, which I normally brought from outside from my mother to use it for cooking. Yes, sometimes I went to school with an empty stomach, and I was asking my mother, can you ask the neighbor to give us small portion of rice or maybe meat? But in general, I was eating just maybe which was very good in terms of health, onion and vegetable with some bread and going to school. Yes, in the school, I started my activism, talking with the students, yes, yeah, at the assemblies about equality and justice and freedom. I went to the USSR in 1989. I finished my education in Odessa, in the south of Ukraine. it was 1998, which I decided to go back to Afghanistan. I thought maybe the Taliban do not have big control over the north of Afghanistan. I used the routes from Ukraine to Central Asia, from Central Asia to the north of Afghanistan. But then I realized it was impossible to live under the Taliban, even in the north of Afghanistan, especially because of my wife. She was studying with me in Ukraine. I have two daughters. Of course, I was worrying about their future. No schools at that time, no infrastructure, no women rights. The situation was very, very, very terrible before 2001 under the Taliban. Then we managed to find smugglers, and then we managed to go back to Central Asia, from Central Asia to Ukraine, from Ukraine to Hungary, from Hungary to Slovakia, from Slovakia to Austria, from Austria to Germany, from Germany to Holland, from Holland to Belgium, and from Belgium to UK. It took 10 months for me with small children from Ukraine to UK. It took 10 months. It was walking at night, dark, sometimes yes, cold, sometimes by plastic boats, small boats, sometimes crossing different borders, sometimes by lorries. And the last was very, very dangerous. The first attempt, which was a normal lorry, wasn't successful, and the French border, the UK border agency in France, they opened the lorry and they told us good morning, and they sent us back to Belgium. But we stay one day in the French police detention before we move back to Belgium. So we managed by 1 a.m. to arrive in Belgium in the immigration center. The next day, I contacted the smuggler. I paid the money, and then you couldn't take me to UK. He said that this time will be different, 100%. But I didn't know that the second time, after 2 weeks, in a petrol station where normally the lorries park their cars, their lorries, he opened the refrigerated container at 2 a.m. At the beginning, I was excited just to get into the lorry, and hopefully in the next few hours we will get in the UK. And I didn't know that, first of all, from 2 a.m. when he shut the doors until maybe 6 a.m. we were sitting in a cold, dark, refrigerated container with a small baby. And then at 6 a.m. the driver started the engine. And then I think that we arrived maybe at 10, 11 a.m. in Dover, where we started banging the lorry, which eventually the UK border agency opened the door, and we lost conscience. There were some three, four families from Kosovo, from the former Yugoslavia. Thank you to these people. Otherwise, we didn't know anything. They started banging the container. And then the UK border agency, they took us to the local health center. After 1 hour, they brought us back to the UK border agency office in Dover. We had a brief interview. They give us an accommodation for one night. The next day, they send us to London, where we started our life. Thank you to the Refugee Council. After spending 1 day at the Refugee Council in Brixton, they give us 1-bedroom flat in the southeast of London, in New Cross. And after a few weeks, I realized the needs for a community provision to support other people who are in a similar situation that we were at the time. And thank you to the local MP and the local council giving me the support to set up the Afghanistan and Central Asian Association. Actually, my plan was to set up a political party. Maybe we can talk about this at the next maybe interview. The plan was to set up a political party, and the name was the Development Party of Afghanistan. But then the Refugee Council advised me, stop thinking about political party. No one will support you. And I said, I'm new to the UK. I just want to start something, doing something. They advised me, set up a charity. I said, I don't know what does it mean, a charity. They said, we will help you if you want. I said, of course, yes. Then I spent 6 months at the Refugee Council, which they gave me some help with writing some policies, small business plan, strategy for the organization, the aims and objectives for the organization, then small funding application they submitted on my behalf to start with English language classes, then supplementary school helping children with the homework, school subjects, and then of course we move from strength to strength. From the first project, which was the English language, which is also very, very important, especially for the people of Afghanistan, the supplementary school, then it moved to cultural events on a monthly basis to bring the people together and enjoy their time living in the UK, mentoring support, volunteering. If you go to LinkedIn and just search the name of the organization on LinkedIn, you will find thousands and thousands of young people from all over the world, mainly from UK, then you have from US, from South Asia, from EU. They are students. They're coming here for 2-3 months. To be honest, even yesterday when I was at the Downing Street, the meeting was organized by the Department of Leveling Up and Community, something like that. Yeah, Department for Housing, anyway. And I saw the young lady, Jade. She was sitting there as a host, organizing the event with some other member of staff from the Department for Housing. So there's thousands of young people after volunteering with us. They are working now in NATO, in the EU Parliament, in the House of Parliament, in the Home Office, in the Foreign Office. Maybe some people, they are asking me why Dr. Nasimi then sitting for 26 years here in the organization, but they don't understand that my plan is not to find a job and make money. My plan to become the next leader for my country. Whether this will happen any soon because of the Taliban or not, at least if we cannot go back to Afghanistan, maybe we can campaign for the next United Nations Secretary General. I remember someone from South Korea, Ban Ki-moon. He was from South Korea. His English wasn't very great, but he was the UN Secretary General. Then Kofi Annan, he died, unfortunately. But his English was very good, of course, because Ghana was part of the British colony. Yes. Or maybe set up a government in exile. I was told by someone that the US maybe send some small number of troops to Bagram Air Base, and they allow the opposition to work from that military bases. If this is the case, I'm happy to go back to Afghanistan and work as an opposition, as the leader of the opposition, to support equality and social justice, especially for women. Yes. Then, of course, conferences in different places, in different countries, free legal advice on housing, employment, immigration. We never charge any money from our beneficiaries. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's incredible. And it's just amazing to see how full circle that's come, you know, and I was reading about when King Charles III gave you the Order of the Member of the British Empire, and I mean just an incredible
No, but also
growth.
this is also a very very important achievement. Uh, yeah, this one. And this is the honorary doctorate. Yeah,
Yes,
from the
from Royal Holloway.
yeah. This is it make me very very happy. You know why? Because I finished my PhD in Ukraine until last July when people they called me Dr. Nassim, I wasn't feeling very confident, very happy. But now, yeah, because actually, yeah,
That's amazing.
lived experience in the UK is more important than just reading the books and attending universities. Yeah.
It must be a little, yeah, that's an interesting juxtaposition. You know, Dr. Nasimi, I can see that you are made for some great things, and I think you are going to make a big difference for the people of Afghanistan. And I'm so honored to have sat and chatted with you. And I'd love if you have any closing words you want to share. I would love for you to do that now.
No, I would like to say thank you very much, Bailey. The invitation as well as asking me very important questions about my personal life. And of course, I do apologize if I moved into political aspect of the Afghanistan complex society. I do apologize. I'm very sorry. The main goal for me, for myself, is to lead maybe one of the international organizations, or maybe an, an opposition in exile, or maybe going back to Afghanistan if the situation allow the diaspora community to support their people on the ground. But for the organization, I wish to secure more money. Unfortunately, unlike the South Asian community, we are the most disadvantaged community maybe in the world. For example, if the South Asian, they set up an organization today, in 5 years, their income increase up to 50, 60, 70 million pounds. I have a list of those for the Charity Commission website, where for me, while I become the largest Afghanistan organization in the UK, my annual income until by now is 1 million pounds. Of course, 1 million is a very very small money when you are paying salary to a staff member and the rent of the offices. But in terms of values, for me, it means a lot because I am not from South Asia. I am from the most fragile country in the world, like Afghanistan. I wasn't able to speak a word of English when I came to the UK. No, nothing. Yeah. And also, as the first generation coming to the UK and then launching the organization, and you managed to survive, to continue, because in my experience, I saw many Afghan organizations started, and then after a few years, they closed down. Some of them, unfortunately, been arrested by the police because of abusing the money, and they put in jail. In contrast, as you said, I not only managed to survive and sustain the organization, but also met King Charles at Windsor Castle, the honorary doctorate from the Royal Holloway University of London. Yes. And still serving the community on a grassroots level 7 days a week. But then my appeal to the public, to the British people, to the Americans people, yes, is to help my charity, whether I will stay here or not. The charity need more resources to launch its operation, including in the United States. I think this organization can be taken as a very, very good example for the entire millions of the Afghanistan diaspora, how they can use the same maybe approach that we started 26 years ago. Because most of the people of Afghanistan, maybe you are also aware, they are saying that, oh, I am running a charity, I am running an organization. But as far as I know, those organizations, they are not the same like this one. As I said, we open 7 days a week. We are helping drop-in session. We are helping people on different things free of charge. We are focusing on capacity building. We are focusing on integration. Integration is very, very important, and promoting participation of the community. If we don't participate in a community life, we will never, never, never integrate ourselves and our families. So we need some donation from the public here. And I want to use this donation to launch the same organization in San Francisco, California, where we have the largest community. I don't want the money for myself to be transferred in London. We need the same organization maybe in some other places to allow women, the Afghanistan women, improve their quality of life, confidence, at least to reduce their frustration. But at the same time, of course, we need some money to help people to stop starvation of children, street children, inside the country. Those women who are living in the country without husband, those widows, orphans, they don't have access to food, they don't have access to job, they don't have access to internet, and they don't have access to education. In 2 months' time, will be 4 years that the Taliban closed a school specifically for girls. So how can you live in a world in the 21st century where the entire world just watch what is going on in Afghanistan? There is no any action. There is no any solidarity to the people of Afghanistan, in particular to the women who are suffering for many, 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 many years. And this is my message to you and to the people who are listening our interview. Once again, thank you very much, Bev, for allowing me to talk with you. I can see you are a great woman. You are a great person with a great passions and motivation and feeling. When you talk about the situation of the women's rights in Afghanistan, it it seemed to me that you're really, we need people like you to be how to say, to join our campaign for the future. We don't have many people like you to support the people of Afghanistan.
Well, I'm happy to do that. I think it is the right thing to do after 20 years of working to bring stability and then watching it all kind of collapse. That was very hard for so many people that have become my close friends, and so I know we're all fighting really hard over here. And yeah, I appreciate you being here, and I just want to thank everyone who listened today and joined us, and Tashakor, and hope to see all of you again soon.